All right, this is my BRRRR calculator. Now, this one can get confusing, so follow through with me, watch this again, look at the reference cells, and it's going to make sense. If not, it will make sense. Just keep looking at it. So with the BRRRR, remember, what are we trying to do? We're trying to buy, we're trying to rehab, we're trying to re-rent at market rents, we're trying to refinance, and hopefully pull as much money out of pocket as possible while still cash flowing, and then repeat. So this is the BRRRR. So this is how I have this set up. Quick note so you don't get distracted. On this side, I just have some common, multifamily or metrics that are helpful at some point to evaluate multifamily or rentals with. Gross rent multiplier, rent versus cost, gross yield, debt service ratio, cash on cash, and then estimating operating expenses. Don't worry about those now, but they could be some, things to look into that will help you as you evaluate multifamily and rentals. Okay, so again, only change the red assumptions. So we're going to build this out, and I'm going to walk through it, and then we'll go through it and do an example. This is actually a sixplex I just bought. So this is a real example of a sixplex I bought. Again, only change the red assumptions. So there's not that much to change. So a couple of inputs here. Let's still start with the purchase price. We know that. What are you buying it for? $928. In this case, I bought it for $928,000. It's a sixplex. So I put in here, how many units is it? If it's one, put one. If it's six, put six. If it's four, put four. And then this kind of breaks down the metrics of, okay, how much am I buying this per unit? And then what will the ARV or appraised value be after I rehab it per unit? What are my repairs estimated to be in total? Again, this is sometimes a hard thing to figure out, but once you know that number, training for another day on how to estimate repairs, but once we know that number, put the repair number in here. So to BRRRR, you're either going to have to use private money or cash to kind of bridge that gap between the purchase and then the ultimate refinance. So in this case, what is your cost of money? In my case on this deal, it's 10%. And it's 10%, not necessarily the full 928. It's 10% of a little bit of a smaller number because I did put some cash into it. So this is going to be off by just a little bit, but it should be really, really close. So for now, to keep it simple and not overwhelmingly detailed, I'm going to leave this at 10%, which again, you can look at the cell reference is 10% based off of the purchase price of 928. So I'm assuming that I'm financing 100% of this for 8 months, okay? And then we'll get to this monthly rent down the road. I just kind of want to walk you through my thought process on this. So then how much cash is going to be needed for the purchase, rehab, and then the initial purchase or hard money financing? Obviously my purchase price, obviously my repairs, and then my cost of hard money or private money for 8 months. If you don't have a cost of money, it's zero, right? If your repairs are $20,000, it's $20,000. Again, this is a real example of a sixplex I just bought. Okay, my other cost is I've got to think ahead. We're going to go to refinance this, and with a new 30-year fixed or 15-year fixed or 10-year fixed mortgage, so that it will cash flow better at a lower rate. I'm going to have a cost when I go to do that. I figure 3%. So there's going to be a cost of 3% on the back end, which is going to reference the new loan amount when I go to refinance it in 8 months or 6 months or a year. So this cell is coming into play based off of what my cost to refinance it are. Okay, so how do I figure out my long-term loan amount? This is where we got to go back up and estimate the ARV of what this asset's going to be worth after it's after it's rehabbed and rented at market rates. In this case, I'm estimating a value of 1.35 million. And how I'm doing that is I'm basing it off of what I think rents are going to be after I rehab it, which in this case is $1,350 a month, and then what the cap rate is going to be at the time. So when I come down here to the income and NOI, this is kind of where I've tried to estimate this. I should have $8,100 in monthly rent. That will equate to $97,200 in annual rent. I'm guessing on my expense ratio, but if I'm hiring a property manager my taxes and insurance and operating expenses are probably going to be around 30%. Now, the other way you could look at this is figuring what is the price per door or per unit per year. This is a hard number to come up with. Check with property managers and adjust as needed. I'm using 30% for this analysis because I found it's probably pretty consistently the same. But this is going to be different if you're analyzing, say, a single family home or a 100-unit apartment. This is really just a back of the napkin to get us pretty darn close to get in the ballpark to see as an estimate what we are going to be out of pocket. So 30% for now is what I use. Check back with me because I may change this with more analysis. Maybe it's better to use a price per unit per year. But for now, I'm using 30%. So my NOI, my net operating income is estimated to be $68,000 after I rehab, after I rent at higher market rents. So then based off of that, what will be my ARV cap rate? I think for this asset, I'll be probably right around 5%. So to get that number, you could probably have these calculations going one way or the other. Like I could have a cap rate that I know, and then that'll dictate my appraised value price. But in this case, I'm manipulating my appraised value price to give me what my cap rate is. So then I can settle on where I think those, match. So, if I think 5% is too low and cap rates maybe really like 5.25, then maybe I'm really only getting 1.3 for my ARV. So this number here, the appraised value, is referencing, this cap rate, right? So you're just gonna have to play around with this a little bit to get to the cap rate that makes sense. Or if it's a single family home, you're not using a cap rate. You're just using, what you think the ARV is going to be based off of sales comparison. Hopefully that makes sense. This is another metric that I put in here. What is your purchase price cap rate? What I mean by that is what is your cap rate based off of your purchase price, assuming that you end up getting these rents. Now, it's not a totally accurate current picture because your cap rate currently is probably based off of lower rents, but this shows you what kind of value creation you are making between your purchase price and your final ARV in terms of a cap rate. This is maybe a little bit more, nuanced and complex than I'm going to go into as far as this calculator. But for now, just know that that's how I'm getting my ARV in this case, because I'm using, market cap rates of right now going to be about 5%. And so that's going to give me a $1.35 million appraised value. Okay, let's pick it back up here. So once I know the appraised value, then I'm going to figure that I can get an 80% loan to appraised value when I go to refinance this. I'm thinking that's going to be the case from the credit union that I'll be using. Odds are it could be 75%, it could be 80%. I don't think you're going to get higher leverage on an investment property. More likely you'll get lower. So you're either going to use 75 or 80% for this field. So then 80% of 1.35 is $1,080,000. So then I look at it and say, all right, how much cash is left in this deal of my cash when I go to refinance it? And so this number is this. It's my long-term cost to refinance plus my all-in costs of my purchase price, my repairs, and my cost of money. So that should tell me that if I'm able to get a 1.35 ARV, I've bought it for 90, I've repaired out of pocket 90, I'm spending 61,867 in hard money costs to bridge the temporary loan. I'm going to have a 3% loan cost when I go to refinance it. When all that math is done, I probably will leave about $32,000 left in the property, which is phenomenal given the numbers we're dealing with. We're going to be able to pull back out our entire purchase price, our entire rehab budget, and half of our cost of original money. That equates to basically, what is that quick math? Like 5% left into the deal or 3%? Like, it's awesome. It's a great way to do it. So the other kind of way that I look at this is say, all right, well, let's get greedy here. What would my purchase price need to be, assuming that my rehab estimate is correct, my ARV estimate is correct, and my cost of money estimate is correct? What purchase price would I need to be to pretty much zero out my dollars out of pocket on the back end? I would then need to get this deal for $8.95. So this is maybe a way you could go back and negotiate and say, hey, actually I need to get a little bit better price for whatever reason, again, trying to get greedy and optimize this, $8.95. The other way you could look at how do I get less cash out of pocket is what would my asset really need to appraise for so I can have a high enough loan amount and have 80% debt to end up with $0 out of pocket. In this case, I would need it to appraise for 1.39333 if I'm buying it at 928. So that may or may not be realistic, but I like to have that so I can kind of see how the numbers and values and relationship works with my cash out of pocket. Because again, with the BRRRR, the whole point is to buy it, rehab, re-rent, refinance, and still cash flow to have as little money out of pocket as possible. So then we got to look and see, okay, does it really cash flow? Let's say these numbers are all okay. What are current rates for long-term loans? I think right now on a 30-year, it's maybe 3.9. We already calculated our NOI, and we already know what our rough expenses are and what our new debt is. So this is our new debt. Our new debt at 3.9%, 30-year fixed is $61,128 a month. So if we take our NOI minus our debt, this gives us our before debt cash flow. You can see how that works. Okay. So then we go, all right, $6,911, that's going to cash flow. Now there's another thing, again, nuanced, not enough time to do all of this in one video, but what does that equate for our debt service coverage ratio? 1.11, that's probably going to be a little light. We are probably not going to be able to get this leverage because the bank's going to want us to be at 1.2 or better. So even though they might go up to 80, the reality is we probably will need to get a 74% loan to value, which is going to mean that we are going to be leaving closer to $110,000 into the deal so that we can satisfy not only the loan to value requirement, but also the debt service coverage ratio. So, that's why I said this is pretty complicated. There's a lot to this, but if you understand why one part affects the other, it's going to start making sense. And then you're going to start targeting better and better deals that you can BRRRR. So let's come down here and look at the metrics. So again, we talked about the cap rates. Again, we're dealing with just the 30-year cash on cash return. That's 10%. I'd say that's pretty good. Like you're going to put and leave less than 10% in a multifamily deal over $1 million. You never would be able to do that if you just bought it brand new, already at the ARV price of 1.35, because you would be putting in 25% down plus your closing costs. You'd be putting in, what would that be? Maybe like closer to $300,000 for the same cash flow. So this is why BRRRR is so great for investors, because you can create that value, create the equity, limit your cash out of pocket. So then just a brief summary down here at the bottom. Your buy price, which includes your purchase price and your hard money, $998. Your rehab was $90. You're renting it monthly for $8,100. Your refinance of your new loan was $999. And then your cash out of pocket again was $110,000. So this will be a successful BRRRR for me. Not 100% successful in that I won't be able to get every single dollar out of my pocket, but by only leaving $110,000 into this deal, that's a win, because in theory versus buying it at retail and putting 1.35 down, let me do that math really quick. You would normally need to put 25% down, plus your closing costs of $29,000. So really, if I do this right, with the same $367,000 that a retail investor would have available, I could probably do 3 of these if I did them using the BRRRR method. So this one is a little bit more complicated. Walk through it, think through it, research these terms and assumptions. And I've done this multiple times now using this calculator, and it works. It's accurate. And anyway, I hope it is valuable to you. And as always, reach out to me. My numbers are there if I can help you with anything.